And of course, geologists as well. Sometimes you want to look for fossils or even other things.
Or gold.
There's no gold in caves. I never found any. I wouldn't be here if I did. That gap is being filled quite well.
Okay.
Would you think so? Yeah. I'm running a podcast now. Yeah. Or for lack of a better word, sorry, not corruption, but for the efficiency of using funds.
Efficiency.
Yeah, it doesn't get diluted in the way. Okay. There you go. Yeah.
Very eloquently put.
Yes, exactly.
Let's go. Welcome to the Terra podcast. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to another episode where we bring climate clarity through stories and voices from people who shapes sustainability. Together, we will bring ideas and also talk about policies and solutions that drive sustainability in Malaysia and beyond. I'm Saul. So, as mentioned before, I'm in the energy sector. I'm in the biomass power plant sectors where we sell power plants to commercial customers, industrial power plants. And today, joining with me, we have Kevin, my co-host. Kevin, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin. I'm the co-host for the day. Today we have a very special guest, someone I've worked with before, had the pleasure of working with before. We have Zarris Kem.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast and thank you for hopping on board.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and before handing it over to Zarris to perhaps introduce himself a bit, I think just to give sort of like a context for today's session, we have something a bit different. Oftentimes the space is in a way engulfed with a lot of content in terms of ESG specifically and the business case to ESG policy. Today we're going to deep dive into Cave and Karst conservation. It's a topic very close to my heart as well because that's where I started my career.
That's where I met you as well.
That's where I met you as well. Beautiful. And we'll be diving into the nitty-gritty details, but before that, perhaps handing it over to Zarris to, in a way, introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Zarris. I'm a Cave and Karst conservationist in some kind of way. I'm a researcher as well. I have an interest in cave and karst, especially with the species that live inside, in particular spiders. I'm the co-chair of the IUCN Spiders and Scorpion Specialist Group, which is quite a mouthful as you can tell. I'm also a committee member of the Malaysian Cave and Karst Conservancy, which is a local NGO doing and of course championing for cave and karst conservation in Malaysia. So I'm happy to be here, and in my full-time job, of course, I have a full-time job. It's actually working in WWF, which is the Worldwide Fund for Nature. I work in the Tiger team.
Beautiful.
Lovely. And as with every episode, there are a few things that we want to hone in to, in a way, optimize the output for the session for our audience here today.
All right.
So some of the three overarching outcomes of this podcast is one, I think we're going to, in a way, tap into some of your, experience working in the Batu Caves limestone area and kind of give the audience a bit of an understanding into the ecological and geological significance of Batu Caves.
Okay.
Oftentimes, Batu Caves is very well known for its Hindu influence, Taipusim, etc. We're going to dive a bit deeper into that.
Yeah, sure.
Two, tourism can play a very big role. My first job was as an education officer, in a way, running tours, and it has played its role in terms of how it funds the research there.
Yeah.
I'm going to dive a bit into that, looking at the business case.
Okay.
And maybe, you have a bit of, like, I would like to say, like, extra nuggets or extra fries to explore some hidden stories in some of your exploration. I know you did a bit of work at Go Mulu.
Yeah, in Mulu,
Correct?
yeah.
I saw your stories, Instagram stories as well.
Yeah, I love Instagram stories. Love Mulu too, of course.
Yeah, I would like to kind of dive into that. So maybe I'll hand it over to Saul to maybe kick off the session.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So actually, Zarris, prior to this, I actually heard you on BFM.
Mm-hmm.
And, BFM, people know BFM of talking about business, talking about the stock market. And then you have this segment after work, right? After 6 o'clock, you're tired from work. And then you hear people talk about mental health, you talk about family. And then I actually stumbled across your podcast on BFM. You were talking about caves. And it's so rare to see. You find people that do biologists that focus on the forest or the sea life, marine life. You rarely come across people who love caves, right? And I love it. I love every second of it. I was actually all ears because you speak with so much passion. You know everything that happens in the cave. You talk about stalactites, you talk about water in the cave. Also, if I remember correctly, how it was the water source for a lot of wildlife in the forest. So I would like to start off with a simple question, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, how do you get yourself in this realm and this industry, right? Why do you care so much and think about conservation and think about the environment so much? Like, what got you started?
I think like at the start of it, when I was young, my uncle and my father are into conservation, and I
Okay.
never liked it as well. Just like the BFM episode, you heard it correctly. Like I don't like caves. When I was younger, it's like it doesn't make sense for me to go into caves. You have this dark hole, you have the jungle.
Yeah.
Like why would you put yourself in danger? I was the kid who didn't like going into the beach.
Okay.
My parents would go into the ocean and they would be like, oh, come inside. It's like, no, there's sharks. I watched Jaws as a kid, and you think like, oh, science, guys, there's a shark. You can eat people over there. So I was very cautious about it. But I think just like every teenager, when you grow up and you're growing, you just become a different person and you find like, oh, I have an interest for the outdoors and, things make better sense. You understand that those are the movies. It's not actually reality. And I got into caving on the casual part where you just follow, groups going in and you sort of have an interest like, oh, it's nice to be here, sort of like a hiking thing. But it's just like hiking, you get deeper into the science of things. And I think that's when like Dark Cave, when I met you much, much later on, but it's sort of like a baptism of fire or even out of the frying pan and into the fire.
I had a question out of curiosity.
Sure.
I think like Sauce mentioned, right? I think it's not really every day you find someone who is involved in a cave, who's a caver or a speleologist, as we call it, right? People within the cave industry
Study caves,
study caves.
I didn't know that,
etc.
but always learning.
But the cave, the whole cave, I guess, sector in a way is quite multidisciplinary, as you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Hydrology, geology, speleology, and then biology, herpetofauna, etc.
Yeah.
And if for the audience, for those who are trying to get into it, I mean, you studied it as an enthusiast, and then you got into it slowly, and it gets more formal research, etc.
Yeah.
What about for those out there who's like looking, hey, this is something I want to try out. I guess passionate about caves in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
How in a way can they mimic what your transition into the sector?
I think it's very similar to people who go hiking, and so sooner or later you go into like, oh, funguses are pretty cool and bird watching is pretty nice, or I like to look for like small mammals or large mammals and look for herping in this kind of way. So I think the first thing is getting there. Joining a group, going caving. Of course, caving responsibly with these groups as well.
Is there a cave society like MCKC you've mentioned? Do they have like that beginner caving thing that they can just join, or where do they start?
Well, honestly, right now, MCKC, we're mostly focused on conservation and research and pairing the two together. But of course, there is a big gap where we should be going for more engagement with youth and people like yourselves, people who are in this age group of the late 1990s or so, and getting them into it. And from there, perhaps you can gather them to be passionate about it, be interested in certain parts of the caves. It can be from the cave science, it can be from the invertebrate life over there, it can be from the fossils which are over there. In different parts of Peninsular Malaysia have different groups who are liking to go into caves, mostly as a enthusiast and maybe as a casual, going in, experiencing the environment itself, seeing how life can sustain itself inside a cave, and then go out. But these are great people for potential to do cave science and do conservation work and research work inside there. But it takes time, and it's gonna take a while compared to like birding and everything like that. It started way even like Merdeka time. You had a lot of the British people who did it, and locals got into it, and slowly like snowballed. Like you mentioned, caves is very like niche.
It's very niche.
It's very niche indeed.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be structured in some kind of way, and you can learn a lot from the US. The US has a big caving community with the National Geological Society, and they're very methodical. A lot of the techniques with rope techniques, survey techniques, even with kits restoration, it's extremely well documented, and they create a lot of manuals because it's such a big country. the US, regardless of what's happening over there now.
Yeah. Let's not
but-
quite get into that.
Yeah,
Rest in peace.
but it's it's a great example, and we
Yeah.
can learn a lot. Just like looking west, but do it over here. There's really
Yeah.
a lot of potential there.
Interesting.
I have a question here. So, Calvin asked the question like, okay, how do people get into it, right? As a hobby and
Yeah.
things like that. But you put it in the sense that, okay, if someone wants to make this their career,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Malaysia, but I'm sure in in US,
Yeah.
they are funded by governments or universities. Is it as well supported the ecosystem here in Malaysia for people who wants to pursue a career in this?
No, not really. I think it's sort of where it's they have a profession, and it sort of relates to limestone. For example, you have Dr. Ruth Q, who did a lot of work on limestone plants, for example. And she's a botanist by training, and she got more and more into limestone, and she's
Just a
become
heads up, a botanist is people who study plants.
yeah,
by
a
the way,
botanist
in
is
simple
people who study
terms. Yeah.
plants, botany,
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
Professor Sprout, if you like Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, yes.
And she is into botany, and limestone was like a very interesting place. There's a lot of potential there. She got more into it, and it became her sort of specialty, limestone. You have geologists as well. Sometimes they're part of the British Geological Survey, and there's a lot of limestone areas inside the UK. So they go into it. It's very interesting. Some of them study mining, as like a full-time job to understand mines, the abandoned mines below a lot of Western countries, and it's just part of the landscape. So the districts above want to know what's below them, so they go into it, and it's like, oh, this going underground is pretty nice. I go into caving. And of course, geologists as well. Sometimes you want to look for fossils or
Yep.
even other things.
Or gold.
There's no gold in caves. I never found any. I wouldn't be here if I did. Or even if you find certain geckos or reptiles, herpetofauna. If you find them around the hill and you find them on the hill, there's a high chance that it'd be endemic. And it's like, oh, why not make this my specialty and focus on this? So I think, and even on the microbial side, you can find a lot of life inside caves, and there's a lot of potential over there in terms of money funding. So the other examples were very academia based.
Yep.
NASA gives a lot of money to research in caves because caves could be the next place we find life in the cosmos.
Yeah.
It's sheltered. These are they're not tunnels in the moon, but sort of Mars and the moons of Mars
Yep.
and beyond. But caves are a shelter away from radiation. It could be a place you can find, some very simple life. And caves could be that. And of course, photosynthesis at the cave entrances as well. These are things that NASA are interested in. And there are grants out there. And there are researchers out there, especially in the US, who do this, actually, as a full-time job. But in Southeast Asia, to say, it's mostly a complementary thing to the current work that they have. And, people like myself, it's sort of like a weird, mishmash of a lot of things like geology, a little bit of the plants, and a little bit about the environment, a little bit of bats, and especially with invertebrates, and it all converges inside one area. It's very diverse, just like I mentioned in the BFM interview. It's like marine biology, it's all interconnected. Yeah.
Amazing. So safe to say, if someone were to pursue this, they would essentially, in a way, have it as a hobby besides their job.
I think if you want to do it, you have to be very, like any project, you guys are in the sector. It's more about framing it, right?
Yep.
How does it relate? How can people feel that it's something beneficial for them to save, something that they will want, to treasure or even exploit in a very sustainable and, ethical way.
Yeah.
Rather than blowing it up. And so I think that's where, a lot of people come in, and I think that's where, this time where information is so easy, TikTok, podcast, talks, it's so easy to accessible. People are learning very, very quickly, and you can get into it very, very well. And you can be anything you want to be these days, right?
Yeah.
Information's out there. So you just got to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just do it. Yeah,
Find the time,
Yeah.
get a full-time job. That'd be best. And then do, yeah.
On that note, switching gears here,
Sure.
I think Batu Caves, right? Known for its sociocultural significance.
Yeah.
Known for its Thaipusam festivities. Known for its very high statue. In fact, the highest Murugan deity statue in the world.
Yeah.
In fact, standing at about 42.7 meters. Oftentimes known for its cultural significance, as we've spoken about it. But I mean, we've worked there, but you more so than me. I think you were part of the Batu Caves expedition back then.
Yeah.
About 7 to 8 years ago before COVID. So what maybe take us through what are some of the, I guess, geological and biological significance of the Batu Hill, so to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, if you look at limestone, especially in Peninsula Malaysia, a lot of limestone is not that young. It's quite old, 200 million years or so. Some of them are a little bit younger than that, or even up to the higher ones, which are like 400 million years old. So it's very old
How
rock.
old is the Batu Caves, the Batu Hill?
So Batu Cave
Yeah.
is actually connected to the Kuala Lumpur limestone, and it's 440 million years old. So that means it's older than dinosaurs by around 200-ish million years, which is a big gap, by the way. Yeah. And if you want to put into perspective, like the Titi Wangsa range is like 200, 120, odd million years
wow, that's-
in age.
yeah.
It's a granite that came up.
Yeah.
People, you can correct me, of course, on this, but what I'm trying to say is that the limestone's been there for a long time, and as a matter of fact, the limestone covers a great portion of the Klang Valley, which we don't see. So the limestone is very important because without limestone, we won't have Kuala Lumpur.
Gonna sort of put you in the spot here.
Sure.
It's not part of a set of questions.
Okay.
But now coming back to sustainable tourism, he touched a bit about biodiversity value. Now I think through frameworks we're trying to quantify ecosystem services, right, and quantify how much the ocean is in the more monetary sense.
Yeah.
Now in the context of caves, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how in depth this is being looked at,
Sure.
right? So you have your biodiversity value, one thing which leads to people wanting to see it, that's touristic value there.
Correct.
Now, for you, if you were in charge, let's say you were the government in this case, right?
Okay.
Yes, to sustainable, to tourism, ecotourism, like the
Yes.
ones we've seen in Dark Cave.
Okay.
Or no, let's just close everything up and let the species thrive inside, away from the eyes of humans. Which way would you go?
I'll go the what do you call it, the tourism way.
Why?
Because I think this idea was like, oh, we have to like lock everything up and don't let anyone go over there. But people don't, understand and appreciate these kind of areas. They wouldn't want to save it. They just think it's a rock. They just think it's just a patch of forest. Why should I save it for? But if they go inside these, forested areas, they see elephants. They see a hornbill flying. They like dip their toes in a stream. Get into a thunderstorm. And go camping and have that experience. Or even like, of course, with the cave. They go in. You have a lot of bats. You experience the darkness. You go in and you see like, wow, there's life everywhere. Even in everything is black and covered with dung, bat droppings and guano, there is life. You don't get that experience if you're gonna lock it away. It's like a princess in a tower or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just a tale.
So I guess the exposure, right, and people
Yeah.
get to see it. And also, recently I've been getting into hikes. I think the last couple of months I used to back in the day, but then lost track a bit. But then I think a lot of the recent hike spots,
Yeah.
you have to pay permit fee. It's not much. It's a nominal fee of
Yeah.
about 5-10 ringgit, etc.
It's fine.
But the business case is such that if they can in a way generate some revenue from it, you don't have to in a way develop that specific area, right? And
Yeah.
you see that a lot in the Kuala Kubu Baru area. Now, my next question for you: if you were the government again,
Yes.
what are 3 policies that you would in a way mobilize or craft specific for cave and karst conservation in an ideal scenario?
In an ideal scenario,
Yeah.
I'm very bad with all this kind of stuff. I think you would know more than me. But let's be an idiot and just say what I want to say,
yeah,
right?
for
right.
layman,
Go
yeah,
for it.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think first thing you gotta do is put a lot of money aside and do a large program to survey the caves. Create sort of like a fund, like a trust in some kind of way. You have all these sustainable finances kind of things,
Yeah,
like put in money, it makes some kind of interest and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
Be smart.
The funding is the one
The
element.
funding is
The
one
funding.
thing. I think it's a sustainable funding, for
Yeah.
a long term. When I say long term, it's like 10 years. I'm not going to say, and more, and beyond that as well.
Okay.
It's just like the great trust that you see like in South America where,
Yeah.
they make it into a national park. They get, I don't know, tens of 50 million US dollars into that area, and money from the investments of that, trust is used to sustain the park and
yes.
and its upkeep and everything. So on the baseline, we don't know what's in these caves. So there needs to be some kind of fund, and maybe from the first phase of the trust, to go into these caves and survey them, document everything extremely well, and document things to the nth, yeah? Because a lot of people have collected animals and collected wildlife, and they say it's, genus species A, genus species B, C, D, They don't go in depth and really do it. So there's a big gap over there, because they just go in, and it's gap, So there's not enough taxonomists. And so you need that. So first one, money. Second one is some kind of institution. And it has to be a museum in some kind of way. Because if you're going to find a lot of new species, guaranteed, where you're going to keep them? Are there going to be a good place where I can keep a type specimen, which is going to be well preserved for the next 100, 200 years? Can you believe it that, sadly, this happens in Malaysia because of our colonial past, but you can still find specimens collected in Malaya in a British museum, and they're extremely well tagged and categorized and, kept in, drawers over there. You can still find it extremely well taken care of. And I think that's a great need for that over here. I think a lot of the people right now, I wouldn't say the current conditions, but I think there's a great need for that. And of course funding is always the issue. So because if you're doing all this work, you got to find a place to put it, and you got to find the people to do it as well. So coming back to the funds, you need to fund people who are interested in this, genuinely interested. You got to make sure that they're trained and capable.
Capacity.
Yeah, capacity building. And once you have all this information already, this has to run concurrently, obviously. You have to find ways okay, you can do this over here, you can do this over there. And yeah, there'll be mistakes made. But we made plenty of mistakes in Malaysia already, so you can learn plenty everywhere, by the way. And even in Southeast Asia, there's plenty of examples. And there's plenty of experts everywhere as well, So you have to have that. That's the base of it. We have a lot of that.
Blueprint, if there's a country that we could mimic globally, right? Who's doing it well?
I can't say who's doing it well. I think there are still the same problems are everywhere. Money. You go to Europe, they have a lot of very special cave fauna. Tiny invertebrates. The size half the size of a grain of rice. Tiny ass things. Excuse me. And money. Interest over there. People don't feel an emotional connection, and there's no data to back it up. And where is it going to go from there? But what else? I think on a limestone scale, there's no very good example. I think China, but I haven't read enough of it.
Okay.
But if you think about it, China with the lack of corruption and or for the lack of a better word, sorry, not corruption, but for their efficiency of using funds. Yeah, it doesn't get diluted in a way.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Very eloquently put.
Yeah, exactly. A good hot take about this is Langkawi.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, people may say bad things.
Unanimously agree.
But okay, yeah. But okay, so you take the cable car up. It's very nice. It's like, wow, this place was designed by Europeans, right? This whole area. It's quite nice. You don't see a lot of rubbish everywhere. It seems minimal impact to that particular area. It gets a lot of people to be in this kind of environment, which is normally very hard to get to. But you come down from the cable car, you're in this village, and it's just like, where is that connection over there? I had this, it's like, it doesn't really gel, right?
Yeah.
Because you had this this is great. I think they put some interpretation here and there, talking about the plants and the stones and the rocks and everything. I think it'd be great if they had something more thematical down there and to emphasize this instead of, being some, I think they had this, Japanese-y kind of garden area, and they had this kind of European kind of style place with architecture, and it sort of looks like very tourist trapish. Why are we creating a different country on our own? Why not we just celebrate ourselves?
Exactly.
I agree with that.
I mean, coming towards the tail end of our session, and speaking of creating our own identity as Malaysians, and shooting this the weekend, I guess, before Malaysia Day, right? Your final message as a Malaysian, as a Cave and Karst conservationist, if you have one message to the audience, a hopeful message for the conservation scene as a whole, what would that be?
I think if you drive by, the hills of Kinta Valley and, and you see a lot of destruction of nature, like in this case, this limestone, and you get very frustrated about it, don't forget that you can do something about it. You can take action. You can be the force of change, And I think you have to remember that the people who make all these big differences in the world are no different than you and me. They're still people, Steve Jobs was a dude, but he had a vision and he had this gumption to just do it, right? And get it done. So if you just feel passionate enough, go ahead. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to happen quickly either, but keep on doing it. Because if you just do it for 3 years, it's not going to be worth it. But don't lose hope as well. If you lose hope, then other people lose hope as well. So just keep doing it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I put a lot of pressure on myself sometimes. But keep on just doing it, even small things, and be happy for your wins, that you make along the way.
Celebrating the small wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go big. You can work with your community. You can start with your friends. You can bring a group of friends into there. Interact with, of course, the landscape as well. A lot of people, are like keyboard warriors, interact with the landscape, I think, for example, with limestone, rock climbers are a great group of people. You're literally holding on to the rock. You're interacting there.
Yeah.
Your life is in the hand of a rock.
Such an intimate...
intimate,
intimate activity.
Exactly. So, that's a good example, like you're there. Why not save these kind of places? Just vocalize. It's not my problem. It's like, okay, then doesn't make sense. It's like, that's our natural heritage over there.
Well, folks, I think we've come to another end for another episode for our podcast here today. But, as always, we're just going to quickly summarize some of the key outcomes that we've anyway kind of fleshed out throughout the session. We've touched a bit about the ecological significance of Batu Caves, right? We've talked about the biodiversity value and how it could, in a way, create that touristic value as well.
Yeah.
And I think what I like is that balance, right? I think I personally do believe there is a need for tourism. One, revenue generation, right? Two, education. I'm a firm believer in education. I was an education officer at Dark Cave as well, and we saw the eyes of people lit up when when we stand at the last station and we educate them, right, on the significance of limestone. So I do believe in that. So I do see the value in that, but it's just doing it right in the first place. And we've touched a bit about some of the endemic species, and we didn't really go much into geologic formations. It would be nice to actually go into a cave and talk about that.
Yeah.
But we've looked at some of the plants.
Well, it's called a Terra
species.
project, so why not,
Yeah. We're open to it. Never know. Maybe our next shoot should be inside Dark Cave.
In a
Take
cave,
us on a
yeah.
tour.
Yeah,
We're open to
other
it.
caves, yeah.
I
Other
was in
places.
Batu Cave last week. I saw a lot of trash.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I was there. I stopped at the Dark Cave.
Oh, if you're there, if you see it, I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, just generalizing in general, there's a lot of trash everywhere in our environment, especially when it's very close to urban environment places.
Yeah.
So there's a great potential for that. But it just has to be organized well and just planned correctly. And if it can be sustainable over a long period of time and have a big project, and people see like, oh, I'm getting more and more and more into this, and where does the trash go? Can it be recycled in some kind of way, turned into something? I don't know. I think there's something there from it,
Yeah. Never know. Let's see.
Endless possibilities.
Yeah.
But that's all the time we have for today's podcast, folks. This is a topic we can actually go on talking a lot longer, and perhaps going into the wild as well.
Yeah.
But just to kind of summarize, if you found this podcast session helpful, or you would find someone who would find this helpful, we would like to actually ask you to perhaps like, share, or even comment your thoughts on the session. Once again, I would like to thank Zarris for your time. I know you're quite busy to get a hold of you. You were in Ulu Muda last week.
I was in Belum.
Belum.
Yeah.
Quite a hard man to catch, but thank you again, Zarris, for your session. And stay tuned for the next episode for the Terra podcast. Signing out.
Thanks, guys.